for you all at the end of this talk. Hopefully it won't be too long. I'll try to cut through all of the things that happened this week and address some of the issues. And then we'll move forward from there. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is our network value. I'll briefly cover some of the statistics for this week in terms of the price action, because I know that's what most of you are interested in. Know really what happened. Know one of the biggest things that we saw happen this week was that BTC finally broke that resistance value of 8,000, and because it did break 8,000, it was a rising tide lifts all ships type of motion that put everything in play, where BTC helped to lift LPC and a few other alt currencies. So I think that's a good thing. One of the things that I do in the morning, because I get this a lot, anytime the price is down, without failure, I'll receive at least 5 to 10-ish either DMs, chats, messages sent to my emails, phone calls. Hey, why the price is down? Why is the price down? Why is the price down? If you focus on price, that's the only thing. If you focus on price, that's the only thing that I'll begin to focus my attention on, because you're driving me instead of helping to drive value. So I'll try to give some, not necessarily an explanation, but some recommendations for things that investors can do in the future. So to kind of reduce the amount of questions that I get on a daily basis, either on Discord, Twitter, or the other social sites. And then also talk about the progress that we've made this week in terms of getting out the press release, getting out the long article from the University of Central Florida, and also being able to make some more announcements around things that we're doing in the coming weeks. So with that said, let me share my screen here, and I will share, who can share advanced options here. I want to share my screen. I'm going to push this button, and where is my nice spreadsheet? There it is, and share screen. Okay. Hopefully you all can see my screen. This was a screen capture from this morning. It's not 100% accurate. As you know, this is changing in real time. But what I'd like to just do is briefly just go over some of the statistics, just some price actions. $4.50 per LPC with a volume of around 600,000 or 73 BTC. The total market cap of 3.6 million or 443 BTC, which I think is good compared to where we were earlier in the week, where we had a market cap. I think the low was around maybe 1.2 million. But we were once again going through that big correction from that run up that we had last week, and we settled in. I did give a conversation last week about where the regression line fit, where we were going to bounce in between roughly $4, $4-ish, $5, and we're right now still on that track. We're still following that regression line. If you run a regression line through the price action for the past 60 days or so, I think 58, 59 days. We're not quite at 60 just yet, but you'll see where we're still in line with that pattern. There's some resistance levels and some support levels that we have in place. So I still expect us to hang out around that $4.50 for maybe $4 to $5 for maybe the next week or so, unless there's some price action that happens with the general market and when Bitcoin in particular. After it broke that 8,000 resistance mark, then you begin to see a consistent rise. And right now, I think it's sitting there, BTC is sitting around 8,200, which is good overall for the market. I know the announcement about the ETF decision around Bitcoin may encourage, perhaps, you know the rumor, you know what people generally say: buy the news, buy the rumor, sell the news. So it could be a lot of people beginning to get into the market because of the upcoming announcement around the Bitcoin ETF. So I think that's generally that's exciting to see, just for the market in general, and like Bitcoin in particular, as it's reflecting also in our price as well. So what I recommend you guys do in the beginning, if before you send me an email or send me a text or send me a Discord a Discord DM, check to see what the overall market is doing, because as I mentioned before, the market is driven primarily in part by the bots, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. In the traditional markets, manual traders, they're getting beat, they're getting swamped by the bots. So 95% of the action in the traditional market is occurring primarily by the bots. So 5% of folks, just those are the manual or the human traders. So that price action that moves the general market is driven primarily looking at the bots that's driving that action, and the programmers behind the bots as well. And just to give a little experience, a little background, prior in late 2017, yes, I did have a bot. No, I don't use a bot with LPC, but it's the case I did trade using my bot on some of the large exchanges, such as Bittrex and Poloniex. So it's the case, APIs exist. I use those APIs to trade. And now recently I just got an email from Binance saying, hey, you can have zero fees using your bot. So for me, if I were trading on Binance, I would have zero fees trading back and forth. So a very, very small amount of profit, if I'm able to calculate the algorithm that I use within the bot is able to calculate a small margin. It reads the order books on the buy side, sell side, calculates what the profit will be, takes into consideration the fee. Now that fee goes to zero. Now you're going to see a lot of price action on those different exchanges because of some of the owners of the bots. They've been given a 0% fee. I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. It will only continue, but we can, as a community, begin to do things to mitigate the impact of the bots. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So let me quickly just get through some of the price stats. Now, as I mentioned earlier, 600K on the volume, 3.6 on market cap, 4.5 on the price. The ROI is about, looking at 34 days, the ROI, somewhat lower, because of the increase in the number of active masternodes. As more and more masternodes come online, and right now we're at about 540 masternodes, we've seen over a 25% increase in the network in less than a week, which I think is phenomenal. And this is breakneck pace when you look at the number of active masternodes being added per day. Originally, we were seeing 7, 8, 9, then 10. Now it's moved at the point where you see 15, you see 20 masternodes being added per day. And that was, once again, we were going through a correction. Individuals began to see the value and they would make the purchase. So of the masternode, that's good for those who were able to get in at that $1 and I think it was $1.89 price point, and now it's recovered nicely, and we're still on that nice regression line, following that path around $4.5, $5 and some change to as a low around $3.50 or so. So I expect us to go through that for a while. So let's break this down a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk about the bots, and I think I have to some extent, of how it's not going to change anytime soon and how it's impacting the market, because there are some bots, and you can actually Google this online. It's called liquidation bots. They're not necessarily, there are some bots at times they're trading at a loss. It appears that they are trading at a loss, but then at the end of the day, there's some method to their madness, or behind the programmer's madness who programmed that bot. In some cases, it may be suppressing the price. In other cases, it may be increasing the price. But generally, what we've seen on Crypto Bridge, and I actually watched, I did this one day. I looked, there's a link where you can see all of the buys and all of the sells. And I posted that link on the Discord, where you can see all the buys and all the sales, and you can see who's making buys, who's making sell, and in what volume and in what frequency. There's a bot that's on around a certain time of day, particularly the time 7 p.m. Central. That's that's GMT -5, where Masternode Online updates. And Masternode Online updates, and it will either show the trend going up, the trend going down, which impacts the decisions of some investors to come in and say, okay, is LPC beginning to trend up? Is it trending down? Has it found its bottom just yet? And in that particular case, if a bot pushes the price down and the trend line for the day or the update on Masternode Online goes down, then you begin to see a downward trend, which may impact an investor's decision to either buy or to sell. So we're going to get into some of the aspects around market irrationality, and we'll try to make some rational decisions as to what may be happening and what's influencing decisions. And typically when you think about decisions that investors would make, either to buy, to sell, to hold, it's the case a wide variety of different factors come into play. Some people are driven by the attractiveness of LPC, either in the price and how it looks, or in some of the value-oriented aspects that we're driving in the business, such as the partnerships, the exchanges, the community that we've built. So you have decisions that are based on how attractive the price is at this point, where it may be in the future. You may have a short horizon or a long horizon. But it's the case that people are going through this thought process and using different cognitive processes to come to their decision to buy or sell. So let me move into where we are now, looking at the active masternodes. I'm going to quickly scroll past this chart to look at the rise in the masternodes. Typically, if you were to put a regression line through this line would look more linear, but now it's beginning to take on more of a curvy linear characteristic. It's beginning to ramp up and go somewhat parabolic, still more linear than parabolic, but then there's a nice rise that's no longer consistent with a very linear trend. I expected us at this point in time to be around, say, 400. If you were to draw a regression line, it would be around 400 and some change in terms of where we are in masternodes. But right now, because of the dip and correction in the market, we're right around 400 and 450. We'd probably be there by the end of the day, 450 masternodes, which is going to slow down the reward time and at the same time impact the return on investment, the ROI that we see right now is at 34 days. But let's take a deep dive into just some of the economics or the demographics of where does LPC currently sit. As of this morning, we're at 3.6 million in market cap. In masternodes, and this is a value that is calculated, if you were to look at it, it's the price times the number of LPC times the number of masternodes that are present. So that gives us a masternode network value of roughly 2.5 million, which represents roughly 68% of the network. These are, and I appreciate the investors that are holding for the long term in a masternode, but this 68%, that's one of the highest masternode network values on all of Masternode Online if you were to go check and look. Particularly given our market cap and our volume each day. In the top 10, I think in the top 10, top 15, we're maybe there's maybe one other Masternode coin that has a Masternode network value of roughly 68%. And that's very, very good, which gives some indication of what we're doing as a team and the value that we're building for the long term with the next generation wallets, the point of sale devices, and the contactless ATMs. And this is roughly an estimate on terms of what's actually being held in the nodes and wallets. Perhaps there's an investor who's smarter than I am, who can calculate the value exactly and come up with a more reasonable estimate. And I estimate the value of the nodes and wallets, and this is a very rough estimate, as the number of masternodes that are currently on the market cap minus the value of the masternodes minus the trade volume each day. As we saw earlier, the total volume was around 600,000. And I did a rough estimate in terms of the 24-hour trading bot volume, and I'm taking an estimate of around 50%, even though in the traditional market is around 95%. Some YouTubers and some day traders are saying bots They're around 90% of the market, but I'm being very conservative and looking at the trade bot volume as 50% of the volume. So if you look at 50% of the volume being done by bots moving in a direction versus the human volume at around 50%, which is 8.2%, we can break this down into a pie chart, the total market cap. So vast majority of folks are holding in Masternodes. I think that's obvious, but seeing it here graphically, it makes sense. I'm doing my Ross Perot impression. He loved charts in the state of Texas when he was running for president, and he said, "Hey, look at the charts. It's clear." Most of the Masternodes, most of the value of the network is driven by the Masternode owners. So typically, when you think about decisions, people tend to make decisions that are consistent with the masses. But you do have people who are contrarian and say, okay, I like to make my decisions based on other factors and not necessarily follow the herd. Because if you read the book by Malcolm Gladwell that talks about the genius of mass decisions and how decisions are more and more accurate as more and more people get involved into the network, you can break it down from a statistical perspective. The more instances of a sample in making a decision, the more it drives towards the true population parameter or the population value. Don't want to get statistical here, but this is my interpretation. For the most part, the more people you have making a decision, they tend to make decisions that are somewhat more accurate than just one person making a decision. But then breaking the chart down in terms of the wallets, what we see here in terms of the nodes and wallets, and this is just, once again, I said a rough calculation, about 15.5% are just individuals who are holding the LPC in their wallet and they're staking, thus serving as a node for confirmation. And individuals who may not necessarily be staking, the wallet may be closed, but this is just my rough estimate. Is based upon the total market cap minus the number of masternodes minus the 24-hour trading volume. There's some overlap between these two values, so even if it's the case, it's around 32% at the end of the day. But this is my rough estimate. Like I said, there's maybe someone smarter who can come up with a better estimate. But right now, it's about 15.5% is the nodes and wallets that's used for, and the nodes are used for confirmation. Wallets just individuals just holding value. But as you can see, breaking down that 24-hour trade volume, and I'm just, once again, using a rough estimate saying 50% of the volume, daily volume, is driven by bots, even though there's evidence that's the same. It could be up to 90%, but I'm just using a rough estimate. With that said, 8.2% of the volume driven by bots, 8.2% driven by humans. So looking at the decisions being made to either buy or sell, typically, if people are looking towards consensus in terms of a majority, it would make sense looking at what decisions people are making in terms of their acquiring LPC, locking up for the long term. The vast majority of the folks overwhelmingly are for the long term buying masternodes, or at least for a 24-hour period, because right now you can't even receive a reward, a masternode reward, unless there's a 24-hour passing at this point. But people are impacted. If you're impacted by the price, just know 8.2% of your decision, if you're looking at the price, is driven by what an individual or set of individuals or an organization or set of organizations, could be a bank in a black box operation, or maybe some government entities either within or outside of the United States, who knows? But for the most part, that volume is driven by a robot, and 8.2% of it is impacting your decision to either buy or sell. Even though it's the case, you have 68% of individuals or organizations that are investing in the masternodes. So you're kind of having really 16% of your decision driven by human traders and robots. But if you take out the humans, roughly 50% of your decision to either buy or sell is driven by or what a robot is doing on a day-to-day basis. So I'll quickly pause there just to take some quick questions and see does that make sense. At the end of the day, it might. If the volume is very, very low, a lot of people selling masternodes, you're seeing the masternode values drop below 50%. It's no longer most of the individuals owning LPC are holding, then you may sway your decision. But I know everybody has their own individual preference. It may be a family situation. You may need to pull out funds, or you're making another investment. But that's really my breakdown of like what's driving the decision and how the market cap is distributed amongst the different aspects, either in trading bots or in nodes and wallets or in Masternodes.
Okay, Damon, I have a couple of questions, I think related to Masternodes, if you're ready for them.
Sure.
Okay, so from the community, first question is, what increases Masternode value?
Okay, let's break down the formula. See this value right here, that this 2.4 or 2.5 million. When we break down the value, and there have been papers that have been written on this, a nice book online. I don't know the title of it. I'll get it and I'll post it in the Discord, which talks about how investors should really, they were talking about primarily speculators, in moving into the cryptocurrency market, how should they begin to evaluate different projects? And one of the key components that was emphasized is the Masternode network value. And looking at the Masternode network value, it's a formula. It's very simple to see here. If you can look in the Excel chart at this right here, equal sign 4.688. That's the price, the current price of LPC at the time that I took a screen capture of what was on Masternode Online, times the number of LPC coins needed to secure a Masternode, which is 1,000 at this point. And that value, or that product, times the number of total Masternodes in the network. So 4.57 times 1,000 times 540. That gives you a USD denominated value of the network. So that's the value we get here, roughly 2.5 million. And to get the percentage of the network, in essence, you just divide the market cap 3.6 by, you divide the value of the Masternodes by the total market cap to get 67.95%. Or you can do it via the number of coins. Just if you were to look on Masternode Online and see the total number of coins here is 540,000 locked up, divided by the total supply at the current moment, which is 794,752, which gives this lockup rate, which is 67.95, which is in essence the same value that you see here. And we got it through two totally different means, but in essence it's the same value, equifinality. So that's how you would compute the value of the Masternode network.
Okay, and then sort of a related question, just I think this is like a kind of speculative question for you. Like, so what are we expecting the cost of the Masternode to be in the next 90 days?
I won't. Here's what I'll.
You're not in the prediction business, of course.
To some degree, I am. I'm making a bet on myself. I'm making a bet on the community to say that we're able to drive value in a wide variety of different ways. One, as our network gets larger, I think more and more people will begin to talk about LPC, to the degree that our partnerships, the number of partnerships are announced, and there are many. And once we make those public and people are able to verify it, our value increases. I do believe with all of my heart that the value, the price will sync up with the value of the organization. And if you've read the book that Warren Buffett's mentor written about the intelligent investor, it's the case that Benjamin Graham, that's right off the top of my head. There's a difference between price and there's a difference between the value. People may look at the price and say, oh yeah, the value of the coin today is $5 and $4.56. However, someone who's more sophisticated, the intelligent investor, would say, that's the price. What's the underlying value of LPC? What does it say on their white paper? What does it say about the team? Can I go into Discord and just get the sentiment of individuals chatting and what things that they're talking about? The other day, I think yesterday, the day before yesterday, it was beautiful to see, even though I wasn't actively engaging in the conversation, there were individuals talking about what they'd like to do in their communities with LPC. Being able to do certain things for myself, I like to be able to bring LPC to my community in Florida, so that individuals could perhaps pay taxes or buy for other business, use it within for business services, business to business, or consumer to business interact or transactions. So there are visions that people have within the community that I share and was somewhat inspired by just reading. So that's how people can get a sense of the underlying value. So what I would encourage individuals to do, look at the value, or look at the price first, then begin to get an assessment of what the value is by the community, value by the team, the relationships that we have in place, and what we're intending to do based upon our white paper. Then, based on your estimate of the value, you can ask yourself, is $4.50 really aligned with the value of LPC? I would say it's extremely undervalued at this point, at $4.50 per LPC. But that's just my opinion, but it's based upon my assessment of the team, what we have in place, the partnerships that are announced, that have been announced, and those that haven't been announced, because there are some organizations that are on their own timelines, and as a consequence, they're not able to do a press release when we're able to mention, hey, can we do a press release? No, we're in a position now where we're trying to gear up for a few things. Would like to have some publicity around moving into the crypto space. But there are institutions. I'm having conversations every day, and we are actually moving down the path with other organizations at this point with LPC, but they're on their own timelines. And looking at the value, looking at the relationships that we have in place, and looking at the community, I think it's highly undervalued. And once again, I would not associate the price right now with the underlying value, because they're not in sync. I don't think they're in sync. So if I had to guess what the value would be in 90 days, I would say current price plus X.
Good answer. Okay, next question. When are you going to enter a larger stock exchange with higher turnover?
In regards to the term higher turnover, I'm guessing that they were saying a larger exchange with more liquidity. As we're on track right now, at sometime in mid or end of August, to actually be trading on Cryptopia. That's a large exchange. At the same time, this past week, we listed on CoinEx Market. And when there are certain days when you look on CoinMarketCap on the exchanges and look at the exchanges and their daily volume, and there are about maybe 300 or so exchanges that are ranked. CoinEx Market, on some days, depending on when you look, they actually do more volume than Cryptopia. But CoinEx Market, from what I understand, has a lot of investors internationally, not necessarily within the United States or so. But we don't have a lot of volume on that exchange right now. But I would encourage everyone here, if you want to avoid some of the bots, begin to distribute your buys or your sells on the various exchanges, including CoinEx Market, Xcodex, and other exchanges that are not engaging in have a lot of bots on it at this point. CoinExchange, which is another exchange, we've had about 10 BTC in daily volume on that exchange since launching on that exchange. So I think that's another area where we can have some liquidity without having the bots. So once again, we're targeting Cryptopia, and we actually have an announcement in a few minutes about another exchange that's already live, where you'd be able to do one-click Masternodes. Surprise! We'll have that shortly. We'll talk about that shortly. But once again, we're still targeting Cryptopia, which on certain days is lower in volume than CoinEx market that we're already listed on, but it's at the point where we have to begin using those exchanges and begin to distribute where we do our buys and sells. So if we were at number one on Crypto Bridge, where we sit on a regular basis, maybe 1 or 2 in terms of volume, and XCodeX, we will sit number 1 and 2. And on CoinExchange, we were, I think, number 9 within like 2 days in terms of volume. If we can fill those up and we're at capacity, it definitely makes sense. And even on CoinEx Market, where we're number 1 in volume, which we're nowhere close to at this point, very little volume on that exchange. If we're at number 1, number 2, or even within the top 5 of each of those exchanges, we can get more liquidity, but we also need more investors. We also need more buyers and sellers, and I hate to admit it, we need a nice little diversity of institutions, and also at some point in time, the bots. I know people may not like the bots, but I'll tell you what I've seen from my experience. When I first got into the game and started trading using robots, and my experience when I was on Binance, and I think the first maybe $50,000 that I was able to earn was using a bot. But here's how I noticed how I moved into the space. I rode Tron when it was like 1/10,000th of a penny. It was the case that we're trading on these exchanges, trying to get buys and sales manually. And I would notice I was getting front run. As soon as I would press the buy or the sell button to place a buy or a sell order, a limit order, a bot would immediately jump in front of the price. And I'm like, why is this happening? I pushed the button. I'm like, why is this happening? It's a high frequency trading bot. I think on Binance, they allow them at 6 seconds. You can do 6 transactions per second. But it's the case, I was noticing I was getting front run by these bots. And one day I just sat for like an hour and watched all of the price action. And I saw these trades, one Tron. I'm like, okay, this is happening in real time. And I'm seeing these robots. And there were some bots pushing down the price. There were other bots pushing up the price. So there were bots competing against each other. And I said, because I've been programming for almost the past like 13, 14 years or so. Pull down the code, pull down some base open source code for bots, made some edits to it like I wanted to make to it as well. And I started competing with the bots. So the only reason I started building my bot was to compete with the other bots that were front running my price. So I do think we do need bots, but at the same time, there are going to be some bots that work in our favor and some bots that work against our favor. But larger exchange, we're targeting Cryptopia. I know that was long-winded, but I think we needed to have a...
No, that's informative. So follow-up question about the question on value. Do you have a comparative price target with a similar type of coin?
Right now, and I love that question. At our point in time, looking at where we are in terms of where we are, 60 days out, 60 days from Genesis block, we are outperforming Dash where it was 60 days from Genesis block. However, understand the context. There weren't that many. Actually, it was the first Masternode coin that was out, but yet there was not a lot of interest necessarily around it. But it had to build. But given that the granddaddy in the Masternode space is Dash, we're tracking better than what Dash does when it got out of the box 60 days from Genesis. We designed some of the coin characteristics similar to that in terms of the reward schedule, similar to that of Dash. In contrast, we also looked at the coin economics of some successful coins such as BTC, Bitcoin, the great granddaddy of them all. In terms of how we are structured in our coin economics, we have the characteristics of Bitcoin and the 21 million supply, thus creating that perception and reality that it is scarce given the 7 billion people that are on the face of this earth. Every single person won't get a Bitcoin, but perhaps we can give a Satoshi or two. But it's the case, Bitcoin with its limited supply creates that, from an economic standpoint, that demand for scarcity. So if you value that scarcity and you want to hold on to it, which is reflected in the Masternode count here at almost 68% Masternode network value, then those are just some of the basic characteristics for a successful coin. It could be the case. This may not necessarily have been a good project in terms of our, say for instance, the white paper. If we put out a white paper and said, okay, we're going to do the exact same thing Dash is doing. We just wanted to enhance anonymity, have speed of transaction. That's it. But we would have some success based upon the coin economics, even though I would encourage, and perhaps this is something we task out for the students at UCF to do, is to actually do a passive observational design on all the Masternode coins to look at what are the characteristics that account for the variation in the price of the nominal price of a coin or a Masternode. And then we can determine is it the coin? Is it the maximum supply? Is it the white paper? Is it the team? How much of that systematic variation that we can independently attribute to those things to say this is the thing that really drives the value? But for us initially doing the research that we did primarily was about the coin economics. Even though we do have a very compelling use case that we're pursuing in providing the next generation of wallets, point of sale devices, and contactless ATMs. So that's what we came up to in order to benchmark ourselves. We benchmarked on the coin economics of Bitcoin, Dash, two very successful cryptocurrencies. And we're also seeing our value in terms of our use case around next generation user interfaces on the aforementioned products, the wallets, POS, and ATMs.
Cool. So we have another question that's coming through. Just waiting for that. Just give me one sec here. And then I think, Damon, it'd be great to get to your sort of surprise that you alluded to before. Anyway, the question is, are there thoughts on releasing any demo media for the LightPay coin ATMs, as well as some of the other tech that UCF is building?
When we issue out the task orders and it's completed, we will have demos. We've structured ourselves already to do that. For instance, you notice that we presented at the Blockchain World Conference. We expect that conference to grow in terms of the attendance. We did a presentation last month, and we're also scheduled to do another presentation in December. With the conversation that I had with Kristen Horan, who is responsible, and she'll be actually have her PhD this next week. It's the case that she is driving the effort on campus with both the students and pulling in the professors and having a combination of individuals engaging with us who want to participate, faculty, student, and staff. I had that conversation with her this weekend to begin to set out actually earlier this week, to set out the task orders. And the task orders against the master level agreement with UCF will specify what are the deliverables, what's the timeline for those deliverables, and when we'll actually make corresponding payments to the students and faculty, and what intellectual property is involved for that phase of the work set out in that task order. The task orders in general that we are putting out this fall will have deliverables, demonstrable, clear deliverables that we will show to our investors at the December meeting in the Blockchain World Conference. So that's when we'll give out either demos, updates, and actually live presentations. I hope to be able to do it on a large stage, so not only your current investors will be able to see it when it's recorded, but also any potentially new investors coming into the space. They're saying, okay, these guys have actually put out a point of sale device. They actually have the iOS wallet, the Android device, and they're moving into the pilot phase already. And like I said, I think if we're able to deliver on that, the first set of those task orders around enhancing the wallets and building out the user interface for the point of sale devices, then I think that's a win by December. So that's one of the channels through which we will give updates and demos to the community. You may be surprised. There may be someone who demonstrates, one of the community members may demonstrate, say, an interaction of a small business that's taking LPC. We don't want, once again, not necessarily commissioned by our official or the LPC organization, but understand, every single investor, you have a vested interest to promote the coin in some fashion. I don't think there's anyone here who's buying LPC because they hate it. That doesn't make any sense. Because you have a vested interest, and because we are a decentralized organization, feel free, shoot a video, do an interview, write a medium, a statement article, say, do Facebook advertising. Perhaps this is something that's that you may tend to do yourself, but yet you're showing a commitment that you have to LPC, and a way in which you're attempting to protect your investment. Going back to Benjamin Graham, the ultimate goal in investing is to protect capital while also ensuring a reasonable return on investment. So in the way in which all the members within LPC, I would hope that you are orienting yourselves is that first you're looking to protect capital first. Next, you're looking to get a reasonable return on your investment. And I think the way that you can get that reasonable return on your investment is actually promoting the coin in all ways that you can. At this point, we're doing a variety of different things. The students at UCF, we're going to make some shirts. I'm Satoshi Nakamoto, LightPay coin, have a nice little logo. So each and every day, they're walking around on campus, and folks are looking, oh, what is LightPay coin? Who is Satoshi Nakamoto, or who is that group? I think those are the ways that you can begin to move down the path. But that's something that you can do on your own as an investor. But we have some scheduled events that we're doing, and something may pop up randomly that allows us the opportunity to demo any of the new products that we have coming out. But a great question.
Okay, great. Do you want to move on to the surprise?
Sure. And what I'd like to do now, and as I mentioned earlier, I did mention at the Blockchain World Conference that we were entering into a relationship with an exchange that would be able to provide another area for liquidity and price discovery. We entered a relationship with YourEx.io. And what's special about YourEx.io is that they are orienting themselves to be somewhat similar to Coinbase in the extent that the user interface is very easy to use. Right now, you go log on to Coinbase and you can buy Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Litecoin. With YourEx.io, they're following a similar path in the sense that you can buy several cryptocurrencies, no more than 5 that I see at this point. And one of those cryptocurrencies includes LPC. What's special about LPC and being able to purchase it on that exchange is that you have the ability to do a one-click Masternodes. Even though that's one of the most difficult things that we find in the channels, it's also an opportunity for theft. And it's unfortunate that some of our investors have been defrauded by people who have impersonated me, impersonated the dev team to provide some support. And what they do is say, hey, I'll help you. Go to this repository. What they would do, they'd fork some of our code, make some edits to it, and they steal your private keys just using some simple tech. And you say, hey, they're pointing me to a repository. This must be legitimate. No, don't accept that. But one of the things, and also in setting up a Masternode, hey, can I view your screen? And you're showing your screen, you got your VPS up, you're putting in your private key. They take a nice little snapshot. You go in, you have your node running for a few hours, and next thing you know, you check your wallet and your funds have been depleted. Basically you've been jacked because somebody stole your private keys and took your LPC. What YourEx.io, what they've oriented to do is provide one-click Masternodes. So with that said, I'll let Joseph Akintola begin to give a description of YourEx.io, and I'll turn it over to him. And definitely thank you. And it's live, folks. Let me see. I'm going to try to use this. I'm going to stop sharing here and turn it over to Joseph. Joseph?
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm actually having trouble launching the video right now. One moment. Oh, goodness. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep. And when you're ready, just hit that big green share screen button in the middle there.
All right. My computer seems to have minimized Zoom, and somehow I'm having trouble finding the full screen of it. So one moment, trying to get it to launch. I'm unable to start my video.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can. I'm going to make you, or Damon, you might actually have to make Joseph the host.
Okay, and let's do that here. Oh, yeah, I see your screen now.
Oh, yeah, there we are.
I see your calendar,
We got you, Joseph.
Hello, everyone.
everything that you're doing.
Okay. So I want to introduce you all to YourEx.io. Let's get that out of there. YourEx.io, as mentioned before by Damon, is a exchange being primarily built for the developing world and with a diverse team aimed at targeting the global market and giving them a really simple solution. So I just want to give you guys a quick demonstration of what it really takes to get online and to experience the one-click Masternode solution. So we joined into a relationship with LPC, namely because we really believe in the project, the team, and really see this going far. And YourEx wants to bring innovative coins, tokens, and teams and technologies to the forefront so that anybody can hold and interact with them in a very simple and easy to use user face. So what you're looking at right now is the wallet. And as you can see, you see the amount of LPC you have in your wallet. You have your usual, your buys and your sells, all of that stuff. All you have to do is click apply for Masternode, right? Then the next step is proceed. As soon as you press proceed, right, you'll be receiving an email that says Masternode request successful. And as you see, immediately there was an amount of LPC requests, and you see right here, I just received an email telling me that the Masternode is online with no fees for a limited amount, and that you'll be notified once the VPS is launched by the engineering team. It may take, especially as we talked earlier, 24 hours for your Masternode to come fully online. But that's more indicative of 24 hours to see your deposits come into your wallet. And so from then on out, you would just interact with it like you would any other token. So for instance, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, a lot of these things don't have those settings. And, you just send your, generate new addresses, all of the things that people are just used to doing with the integrated wallet solution. So what we have here is that for LightPay coin. And so given the amount of LPC I have, I'm actually able to launch another Masternode if I choose. And once the Masternode is launched, the user will have a special tab at which they can see their IP and manage all their stuff. But the conditions are this simple. If you have, let's say 500 LPC, it doesn't really look different. You don't have an option to launch a Masternode. But as soon as your account reaches 1,000, as soon as there's 1,000 in that account, you're given an option to launch one. And then we go ahead and set you up a Masternode instantly. And it may take 24 hours based on the node setup, everything like that, to start seeing your rewards. And you'll just watch your balances grow. And you'll just see that in your transactions in your wallet. So you'll see your transaction history, right? So as you can see, this is this month. If you go in your transaction history, you can see the Masternode LPC withdrawal, and take out 1,000 and launch that LPC. It's the same place that you would see your block rewards. That's just a quick demo for you to understand what we offer. We're also launching a hybrid exchange. It will be decentralized. People will own their own keys, everything like that. There's not much to show you on that right now. If I click the exchange button, we basically launch a thing that says coming soon. So we wanted to kind of save that for later. We have a really good support setup so that if you just, have an issue, if you have anything like that, you just reach us right here. You'll be able to see any of your tickets, your support tickets, and have someone to talk to. And then you can just look at your different wallets. And so this is the service that we provide. So you can see the LightPay coin price right now is hovering around $4. When you go back to your wallets, you can see the total value. So right here it shows in Naira. The reason why we have both Naira and USD is because we built this for the largest economy in Africa, which is Nigeria, and their currency is the Naira. So we really wanted to support the developing world in our exchange. But you can see values both in Naira, and if you go to this top amount, you can see it in USD. So your total portfolio amount for this amount of LPC is about $4,800, and it gives you just an opportunity to interact in a way that people aren't used to with Masternodes. Just really, really simple solution, and you would manage it all through your wallet. So that's all.
Joseph, we got a question. Got a question for you from the community, Joseph. What are the fees for setting up a Masternode?
Okay, so the fees are 2.5%, which is some of the cheapest that you can find anywhere. Some of the competitors we look at, from Mnode to Snode to all the different Masternode VPS hosters. The cheapest one that seemed reliable was at 3%. So we figured we'd do it at 2.5. The reason being, 2.5 is a fee that people are used to paying. It's your debits and credits when people swipe their debit cards. So we figured that would be a great a way to come below what the market is while providing a high security. This all two-factor authentication. We have industry leading. I mean, before we launched this, I spent just because I'm really careful about everything. I paid pen testers, hackers, went through did security audits. Just really wanted to make sure that we were creating a product that had a high level of assurity, had a high level of trust, and so it's a premium service. And we hope to offer it at a leading rate, and I think we have done that. And then we also offer on the wallet, on the LPC wallet, there is no fee for deposit or withdrawal, right? So that's all another feature we have, and you get 1 week, 7 days from the time that you launch your Masternode, the time you click that button, of no fees, right? So without any, just to give you an opportunity to see how you like it, right? So if you guys want to, you can sign up here. Pretty soon, just go on there and click register on the wallet part. And when you click launch that Masternode, as long as you have the amount available, as long as you have the necessary amount available, you can get that button, you'll launch your Masternode, and you'll begin to accrue block rewards without any fees, just to test us out for 7 days. Yeah.
Great. And then just a clarifying question from one of the attendees. Is that 2.5% of the number of LPC coins?
Yeah, not of the original Masternode feature, but of the block reward.
Got it.
So, for instance, like companies like Abra, just for the wallet, have a 1.5% fee. And that's just like for deposits and withdrawals. And they're, you know, a very popular wallet application, pretty highly funded. So we find ourselves a little bit more expensive than a basic wallet, but actually all our basic wallet features are free. There's very few people that have free wallets. Pretty much all the free wallets are open source projects, not, you know, private companies. But our wallet is free. Next, so there's no, and then outside of that, we are cheaper than any other, you know, secure Masternode service. We are 0.5% cheaper than Snode. It's a really popular one for different alts and new Masternode coins. So.
Great. Very cool. Well, we're just about at an hour. Damon, anything else you want to anything else you want to say? Anything we need to cover?
No, pretty much. If there are any other questions, just make sure you can.
Oh, sorry, Damon. There's one more that I skipped over. Sorry. Are there plans to hire additional developers? That was actually asked by a webinar participant who is a developer and would love to help.
Sure. At this point in time, we have some paid, some volunteer. As we begin to grow, our market cap increases, then from pre-mine, we can begin to pay some developers. But at this point, we're not necessarily bringing on any more full-time paid developers. But who knows, as we move forward on the UCF project, we'll need some developers to interact with those students in the coming months. And that's when we'll begin to onboard. That makes sense.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining this Wednesday's webinar. As always, you know, continue to ask questions on the Discord channel, on Twitter even. And, you know, we will be in touch soon. We'll see you again next week, hopefully. And right if you get work, hang by your thumbs. And you know what I have to say about wood nickels. Everybody take care. Thanks all.
Thanks.